published a story called The Crucifixion of Matthew Shepard. I remember an illustration in the Philadelphia Inquirer showing, a pen drawing of a young man literally hanging on a fence like Jesus.
Yeah.
That did not happen. But I think that it's important to look at a case like this and see how many things, how many inaccuracies and misrepresentations there can be. With Trayvon Martin, I'm no expert on the Trayvon Martin case, and I don't pretend to be one, but I think that it was unfortunate that President Obama was making comments about the case before the jury had a chance to evaluate the information and what was presented at trial, and look at that. Again, I'm not commenting on the facts of the case. I'm saying, if we believe in our justice system,
The days are getting shorter, and you can feel it in the air. Yes, it's that time of year. Pumpkin is finally back at Dunkin'. It's the cozy you've been craving all summer long, now in your cup at Dunkin'. Pick up all of your pumpkin favorites, like the signature pumpkin spice iced latte, or a pumpkin iced coffee, and bakery items like pumpkin donuts and muffins. Sip into something comfortable to celebrate the start of cozy season. Use the Dunkin' app for contactless ordering. America runs on Dunkin'.
It's premiere week on The Kelly Clarkson Show, and we've got music's biggest stars all week long. Performances by John Legend, Little Big Town, Machine Gun Kelly, and Common. And appearances by Usher, Josh Groban, Queen Latifah, and more. Get ready, y'all. The Kelly Clarkson Show, all new season 2.
Weekdays at 2 on NBC4.
Believe in our laws, can we let a case unfold without tainting public judgment early on? And in the case of Matthew Shepard, there is no doubt in my mind that this case was highly politicized before police had done any kind of a thorough investigation and looked into this. If we could look at that side of this case. So there are many, many aspects. I've spoken in interviews, and I haven't said very much today, but I think the role of Russell Henderson in this case was grossly misunderstood. And I mentioned in the book how many main news organizations, it was always McKinney and Henderson, or Henderson and McKinney jointly beat Matthew to death. And that's not what happened. And there is no evidence that Russell Henderson ever had a reason or a motive to inflict any physical harm on Matthew Shepard. Was he guilty for his role as an accomplice in what he thought was going to be a robbery? Absolutely. But there's no evidence at all that he knew Matthew Shepard before that night, and he was unaware of Aaron McKinney's previous association and relationship with Matthew Shepard. So there are many things. That certainly was one that was big. I've, been interviewing McKinney and Henderson. I started interviewing them in 2002. And I stay in touch with Russell Henderson. And I'm happy to report that this is a fellow who he started serving his 2 life terms at age 21 in 1999. So he's now served 15 years in prison, and his prison record is spotless. He, has just completed his first 2 years of college in prison with straight A's, has held a job down, no record of any kind of offenses in prison. That says something. So, the rush to judgment about 2 homophobic rednecks motivated because they, hated gay people, I think that kind of a narrative it cheapens our life as Americans when we can't look at the complexities of what a case is really about.
Boy, I cannot agree with you more, and I agree with you again about the Trayvon Martin case. And it comes back to the same thing, because it started out the same way. It was one of those HLN hosts. I forget her name right now, but she put the hood on and she held up the Skittles and the iced tea, and she says, "This is why this kid was murdered." and you have that image in your head. And so how do you feel seeing this nowadays? Because it's gotten 10 times worse as it was back with the Matthew Shepard. On
Shepard case.
Yeah,
yes.
Right. And night after night after night after night, the prosecutors and these lawyers on HLN hammering away at the defendant, actually, I believe, tampering with the jury and destroying public opinion.
Ed, I'm disgusted by it.
Yeah.
I'm utterly disgusted by it. It's one of the reasons I stuck with this story for as long as I did, because I felt that it was an important an object lesson to look at all the complexities. The two fellows, I'm not saying they're bad, okay, but the two friends of Matthew that told this story, what were their motives and their need to do it? One of them, I know, had been very involved with meth himself. He'd become addicted to methamphetamine, okay? He knew Matthew was really involved with methamphetamine. He knew some of that story, okay? But these are two guys that helped spread this story nationally. It was very revealing that these were two longtime friends of Matthew, and the Shepard family did not want them in St. Mark's Church for the funeral service.
Whoa! What? I've been reading a lot of your story this week. Yeah, and I had my suspicions about that. Okay, and that piqued my interest when I read that because they had a motivation to steer the investigation in a different direction.
Well, and human motives. You go back to Greek tragedy, or you go to Shakespeare, human motives are very complicated, okay? And let's talk for a moment about Bill Clinton, okay?
Okay.
This happened smack in the middle of the Monica Lewinsky scandal. The week before Matthew Shepard was attacked was the week that Kenneth Starr, they released, I think it was 4,000 pages of the transcripts of the Monica Lewinsky-Linda Tripp tapes, okay? The week of the attack on Shepard was the week that the House of Representatives took the vote for a full impeachment inquiry of Bill Clinton, and there were a number of Democrats that voted in favor of that. So Bill Clinton was clinging to his presidency at this moment in time, okay? Now, I'm not going to read into Bill Clinton's mind, but I know enough about politics, Ed, and so do you know, that when you're in a crisis, you're going to shore up all of your key constituencies. You are going to show the country that you're a leader, that you have an empathetic heart, that you care about the people, whatever opportunities are going to present themselves. I hate to sound cynical here, but Bill Clinton is a human being. He had motives just like Matthew's two friends had motives, just like Aaron McKinney had motives for not acknowledging certain things. Aaron McKinney, he was the low guy on the totem pole. There were drug suppliers that Aaron McKinney that were higher on the drug dealing food chain than Aaron McKinney. He knew that if he went to prison and he was viewed as a snitch and he was ratting people out, that would be very dangerous for him. So what I'm trying to do as a writer with this story and other work that I do is let's look at the complexities that exist and motives and the factors that come into play, because there are many of them. And that goes from the President of the United States, okay, to some of the Hollywood people that you mentioned earlier. It goes to some of the media people, the national media that covered this story. It goes to some of the police officers in Laramie who might have had their own reasons for keeping quiet about this. The methamphetamine problem was already there in Laramie, okay? But this became a very, very big problem. It grew to 70% of crime in Wyoming was being attributed to methamphetamine. So you have a very big cast of characters. You mentioned Doc O'Connor, the limousine driver. And there are many other characters that I introduce in the book, real life people with their own motives. Doc O'Connor had his own motives for telling partial truths. Kristen Price, Aaron McKinney's girlfriend, why did she start saying that this was because Matthew Shepard made a sexual advance against Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson in the bar? That was part of her story, and she later admitted to me, I would have said or done anything to get him out, to try to get Aaron McKinney out of jail or prison. There were many iterations. McKinney later himself was saying, not that it happened in the bar. He said they left the bar because Matthew Shepard asked him for a ride home, that he didn't get upset until they were in the vehicle at the other end of town when Matthew Shepard reached over and grabbed his leg. So Aaron McKinney himself had many different versions of the story, okay? But, when I really started to talk to the people that knew, and even Aaron himself has acknowledged to me the extent of his use, his dealing. I know some of the suppliers he was involved with. I know the drug cohorts he had in the town. And this has been backed up for me and confirmed by law enforcement. I mean, really? Ben Fritzen is an officer. Ben Fritzen is an officer. He's a lieutenant in Laramie today running the county jail. Ben Fritzen had investigated Aaron McKinney and his other friends and cohorts for meth-related offenses. Okay, so this is not information that people could not have gotten, that the media could not have gotten had they spent the time going and really talking with people and doing some digging. But as you said, when you mentioned Trayvon Martin, you have this very graphic tabloid story, okay, with very clear-cut picture of who the victim is and who the perpetrators are. And they come from two different sides of the tracks. You've got the so-called, and I'm using this, in quotation marks, the trailer trash coming from one side. And then on the other side, there's Matthew Shepard, gentle, fair-haired, speaks 3 languages, went to boarding school in Switzerland. There was a very black and white picture of this story that was presented to the country and to the world.
Wow. I just want to tell people, too, that in this book, it's written almost as like a novel from the first-person viewpoint. And it's just a gripping story throughout. And it's a great read, even if you're not interested in the story, because there's so many colorful characters throughout the whole thing. Real quick, can you tell that story about when you were interviewing one of the witnesses at the truck stop and how the other drug dealers came and kind of tried to pin you in?
Sure. What happened is there was a source, someone that knew Aaron McKinney pretty well, who was a player that night, okay? Because there was, people knew about this shipment that was supposed to come in, and several different people had hands in it. Well, anyway, I had interviewed this source a couple of times previously while he was incarcerated, but he had gotten out, and he was now working in the oil fields. And I went to meet him. I mean, I took the precaution of having a friend come just because it was in a distant place, but I didn't think I was getting set up because I had interviewed this guy twice before, but he was incarcerated then. Anyway, I got in, it was at a truck stop. I had a plan to meet him. He had set a different truck stop, and when I arrived there, he called me on my cell phone, and he changed the location to a different truck stop, which made me a little bit nervous. So I got to the second truck stop parking lot, and, he called me on my cell phone. I got into the car, and I sat down, and we started talking. And by this point, I had really gotten very deep into the meth stuff. And I said, I've learned more since the last time I saw you, and including, that Matthew himself had gotten involved, pretty seriously with meth. And the guy snarled at me and said, yeah, and he was trying to take stuff away from the rest of us. And, I was completely stunned, and I continued to talk for a minute to the guy. And what happened is, 2 vehicles backed in on both sides. One, on the passenger side where I was, and on the driver's side, kind of wedging us in. And when I saw what happened, I looked over and I saw the drivers in the 2 cars. I jumped out of the car, and ran because it was darker there. I wanted to get under some of the lights in the parking lot. And when I did that, the friend that was with me, who was parked in a vehicle across the parking lot, rang my phone really quickly and yelled, Steve, get out of there. They've set you up. and I knew it, but I was afraid that they would know that he was, where he was and everything. I said,